They say, the truth is stranger than fiction. But today, I'm going to tell you 3 stories that don't just prove that. They'll make you question the very fabric of reality. Before we dive in, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious, delivered in story format, you've found your home. This is all we do, several times a week. If that sounds like your kind of thing, please offer the like button. A nice, fresh donut. Just don't tell them the powdered sugar is actually baby powder. Also, subscribe and hit that bell so you never miss a mystery. Our first story begins in Egypt. Northwest of Cairo, a man named Abdel Sad Badawi is lying in a hospital bed. He's in his 60s, and to him, the smell of antiseptic and the sound of machines are far too familiar. Abdel suffered from chronic liver disease. It was a brutal existence, constant fatigue, bloating, and vomiting. But that morning, something felt different. A new, terrifying symptom had arrived. A profound, disorienting clumsiness. As he lay there alone, a sudden, violent wave of lightheadedness hit him. It was faster and more intense than anything he'd ever felt. He tried to call for a nurse, but his throat was paralyzed. Then, the world simply went black. Time lost all meaning. It could have been minutes or days. But eventually, Abdel felt his consciousness flicker back. He opened his eyes, but there was no light, just an oppressive, absolute darkness. He did a mental check. He could feel his arms, his legs, his torso. He was alive, but as he tried to shift his weight, he realized he couldn't move more than an inch in any direction. Was he paralyzed? Or was he physically confined? A crushing wave of claustrophobia washed over him. He began to scream, his voice echoing in a small, hollow space. What Abdel didn't know was that 12 hours earlier, his liver disease had sent him into a coma so deep it mimicked death. The hospital staff didn't see a patient in a coma. They saw a corpse. They had cleaned him, wrapped him, placed him in a wooden coffin, and slid that coffin into a walk-in industrial refrigerator. That is where Abdel woke up, inside a box, inside a freezer. By a stroke of pure luck, workers were standing near the fridge door. They heard the muffled screams and frantic scratching when they opened the door and pulled out the casket. Abdel sat straight up, gasping for air. Abdel scrambled out of that room and vowed never to return. But the story has a dark postscript. One of the employees was so traumatized by seeing a dead man rise like a zombie that he suffered a fatal heart attack on the spot. He was buried in the exact same coffin Abdel had just vacated. Switching gears to a lonely highway, 25-year-old Carl Gilbert is fighting a losing battle with sleep. He's been driving since 3 a.m. for a meeting 200 miles away. Carl was a recruiter, used to long hauls, but today, the fatigue was bone deep. He took a sip of lukewarm coffee, rubbed his face, but his eyes kept drifting shut for just a second. During one of those long blinks, a voice loud, sharp, and commanding yelled directly into his ear from the empty back seat. "Guy, look out." Carl jolted awake. He wasn't just drifting. He was speeding directly toward a massive concrete marker. He yanked the wheel, sideswiping the barrier instead of hitting it head-on. A head-on collision would have been certain death. His car was a wreck to flat tires, smashed metal, but he was breathing. As he sat in a diner later that morning, trembling over a cup of coffee, one detail kept nagging at him. The voice hadn't called him Carl. It called him Guy. Only one person in the world used that nickname: his childhood friend, Peter. Carl tried to tell himself it was his subconscious. Maybe his brain just chose Peter's voice to shock him awake. After all, Peter was hundreds of miles away in Texas, serving in the military. Carl flipped the page of his newspaper and froze. There was a headline about a military training accident. His friend Peter had died in a crash just hours before Carl heard that voice. In death, Peter had reached out to save his Guy. Our final story takes us to the Bronx, 1966. Jose Laurent is a tailor by day, but by night, he's a psychic medium. But here's the thing. Jose is a total skeptic. Jose didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in psychology. He thought people who felt haunted were just grieving or lonely. He performed seances as a way to give them peace of mind, a spiritual placebo. He was at the apartment of Ivan Barbosa, a 24-year-old who looked like a ghost himself. Ivan claimed he was being haunted by a vengeful old woman who appeared in his room every night, looking angrier each time. Jose went through his usual theatrics. He draped black sheets over the TV, lit candles in a circle, and placed an old Bible on the table. He was preparing to fake a connection to the afterlife. Ivan and Ivan's mother held hands. Jose closed his eyes and asked the spirits for a sign. Usually, he'd wait for a floorboard to creak, or he'd secretly tap his foot to trick the clients. But this time, something went wrong. A literal electric current seemed to surge through Jose's body. He went rigid. His vision went pitch black, replaced by a strobe light of horrific images. He saw a cup of hot chocolate rattling, dirty hands tearing a bedsheet, a flash of silver, a splash of red, then a voice that wasn't his, gravelly, shrieked her out of his throat. Jose woke up on the floor, sore and disoriented. Ivan was gone. Ivan's mother was staring at him in pure horror. She told him that during his trance, he had looked at Ivan and screamed, "You killed me, and you're going to die the same way." Ivan fled and took his own life shortly after. When the police questioned Jose, he described the hallucinations of the bedsheet and the hot chocolate. The police were stunned. Those were the exact non-public details of the unsolved murder of Elsie, a woman Ivan had killed months prior. The fake medium had provided the only testimony the dead woman had left.